questions on the program. I read over it, and some of it just wasn't making sense to me. And so if you're vaccinated, you don't have to do the pilot program, correct?
I'll answer with one of those.
Okay, that's fine.
If you're vaccinated according to the Warren County Health Department framework, you're not going to be quarantined, but you are supposed to mask.
Okay.
If you have it.
Okay, and then also too, you mentioned that you had to have, that little Miami was gonna give, like, what was, I forget how many masks for the student to wear. And then when if they were tested into the program, they would have to wear the specific mask given to the school. So are those masks different than what you buy at the store, or what kids are wearing?
They're surgical masks.
Surgical masks? Okay, because I was just confused over the masks were gonna be higher tech, but my thing is that, you know, there's another thing too, is I just don't understand, because masks, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I had a friend who caught COVID and she wore masks all the time, and she was fully vaccinated, so there are breakthrough cases. And then the one other thing that I was confused is that they have to have a test immediately once their parents are called upon if they've been in direct contact with somebody who got infected. But why do they have to have a second test 5 to 7 days later? Like, if they can catch.
That's part of the Ohio Department.
Yeah, I know, but I was, if they can test positive between that 1 and 5 to 7 day window, and you don't catch it until 5 days later, they've been walking around school for 5 days with COVID. But my main question is my concern is that, I mean, how, is this something, in my opinion, they did the statistics again, and I know people are sick of statistics, but 99.8% of people have not died from this virus who have caught it. It has affected probably no more than 15% of the population in the past 2 years. And now we've gone to the extremes of giving our children testing and feeling like that's the only answer. What numbers or what statistics, and I know you guys do a lot of the basis on Ohio, but what numbers are we going to sit there and say, okay, I think it's time to get back to normal, give our kids some normalcy, and stop, you know, covering their faces and shoving stuff that things up their nose. Like, COVID is never going to go away. I hate to tell you, but I don't see this going away anytime soon. And are we going to have to continuously deal with quarantine policies and keep on masking our kids? I mean, for the next how many, 2 years? I mean, I don't know, 2 years. I know they did a program where they're giving schools funding. I don't know a lot about it, but it's for another 2 years, and it's to go towards buying tests and, you know, getting vaccine clinics getting ran through in schools. And if we're going to have to put up with this for another 2 years because of that, like, I mean, it's just not fair to the kids. I mean, I know you guys are doing your best, and I appreciate you voting for not the mask mandate, because it really is a step in the right direction. But I just think for the statistics and the danger of this, it's just a little bit too extreme. And I think I have to follow Ohio guidelines, but when do we sit around and say, we're Little Miami, we serve the district, and we're going to go by what our parents and what we feel is best, and not what the state agency tells us.
That's right.
Thank you. Yes.
Joya Franks, and thank you guys for letting us all talk to me. I believe in medical freedom, and I think that that's very, very important. And if you want to wear a mask, then you should. That makes you feel better. That's important. And if you want to get vaccinated, and if you want to get your kids vaccinated, that's important too. And I think that it contributes a lot. But I also think that it's important to leave parental choices up to the parents. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why administrators think that they should be making medical decisions for children, or my children. Mm-hmm. And what I really don't understand is the audacity of strangers to question whether my children qualify as exempt. It baffles me. And I know that you guys are doing the best you can, and I'm not questioning that. I think that we all get up every morning and we're trying to do the best that we can for our kids, every one of us. But it isn't anyone else's decision or business what my medical records say, what my children's medical records say, what our vaccination status is. And it's my job to take care of my children. It's my job to take care of their health. And I believe that parents will always be the best advocates and champions for their children's health and in all facets of their life. To that end, I believe the parents are the only ones responsible for making the decision of whether or not their children wear masks, and certainly whether or not they get vaccinated. The pilot program, I think it's out of line. I think it's out of step with what parents' decisions should be versus administrators' decisions should be. I think that you absolutely have every right to make recommendations and guidelines, and that you should certainly share information and do the best that you can to educate. But medical records and medical privacy are still that, they're private. And parents are the ones that are responsible for their children. Parents are the ones who have to deal with the fallout from their kids wearing masks all day and all of the problems that COVID and mask wearing and all of the political separation that this leaves behind. Everyone talks about the liability of not masking or not vaccinating their children. But I would like to hear a lot more talk about the liability for what happens to our children because they wear a mask and because they get vaccinated and have adverse side effects.
I went to my first board meeting last month, which was a fun one that a lot of folks here were a part of, and it was a nice, short, very brief meeting. Because it was my first board meeting, I'm looking for a little clarification because I don't think I fully understand the way the board operates versus other boards that I've been on in the past in various capacities. So at the end of our board meeting, the decision about Mr. Power's recommendation for pre-K through 6th grade students to be masked was tabled. And I spoke to a couple of board members, and you shared with me that you thought at that point that there may be a special board meeting following that to vote publicly on that issue. That meeting did not happen. We received an update from the school district that that decision was going to remain tabled. In every board that I have been a part of, old business is then carried over onto the agenda for the next meeting. And so one of the reasons that I'm here today is because I thought that the board would publicly vote on that recommendation that had been given at the meeting so that we, the people who elect you, could see each person say yes or no to the recommendation that Mr. Power made for masking. And so I'm just a little confused about why it's not on the agenda. We can certainly continue to table that and have this hanging out there for months and months and months, but as a member of the community who votes for our board, I would really like to know that that issue has been either continued to be tabled and just hanging on the agenda for the future, or what each of you was going to vote for that motion that was brought to the board. We were here, we saw the video. So I don't understand where it is on the agenda, and why we're not talking about it tonight, why we're not hearing your votes, but I would appreciate some clarity on how that works.
Sure. From my perspective only, and I know this, especially because one of the things you asked was how the board operates in general. And so I know there's a lot of people here who are here for the first or maybe the second time. In a general sense, the two men on each end, Mr. Power is the superintendent. He runs the day-to-day operations of the school district. Mr. Gonda on the far end, for those of you in the business world, he would be the CFO. He runs the day-to-day financial operations of the school district. Mr. Power brings things to us monthly to consider and to vote our conscience one way or the other. At the conclusion of last month's meeting, and after the board had a chance to confer with legal counsel, which is why we, when we adjourned what we said we were going to do, after looking at those options, we decided that at this point in time, along with conferring with Mr. Power, that we were not going to move forward with a masking policy in pre-K through 6 at the present time. Some of us may have known at the time that the pilot program was something that might be considered, and that we were, along with the other superintendents in the county and the county commissioners, bringing to the governor, and that he might actually give us the green light to do. We already have the remote option in place and a blended learning plan in place that the board had already approved, so there was no reason to vote on that again. We'd already approved that. And so at this time, I think we're all in agreement, at least, that we're going to stay with that particular plan in place with Mr. Power and Mr. Gonda's input. And if it gets to a point where positives or quarantines get to a point where we need to close a particular building, or if we need to pivot and do something else, then we will, Mr. Power will bring it to the board and the 5 of us will vote our conscience at that time.
Again, like, I can understand it being continued to be tabled, but like, why is it not still on, like, for an accountability perspective, the way you described it as a business, it's not a privately held business, it's a publicly held business. You guys are accountable to us in the community. Like you said, vote your conscience. I wanna know what people's conscience is, so that I can start to understand as a parent who has newly had children in the district, who I want to give my support and my time and attention to helping create the school that I want. And I think everybody here, again, we all care about our kids, we want to do the same. So I just don't, I'll keep coming. I'll wait for it to come back, because I think it's gonna happen. But I just don't understand why, there was a lot of talk about respect at that meeting, respecting you guys, respecting each other. I don't feel it's a respectful resolution to that proposal that was made at a public board meeting, that there was no public vote.
Sure. And I'll answer that. I know, there's a lot of interest in having back and forth dialogue. I get it. Probably one of the things that's been the most challenging in the last month or two, at least for myself, is someone asks me a question and I give them the best answer I can give them, and then my answer doesn't seem to be okay, depending on which side of the aisle you sit on, right? And at some point in time you go, I don't know what to tell you other than just to try to answer you as honestly as I can, right? And some people may like the answer and some people may not like the answer. I think we all knew that going in, that some were gonna like the answer and some were not, right? If Mr. Power feels like we're in a situation where we need to mask from pre-K to 6 or pre-K to 12, he'll bring it to us as an issue and everybody will vote their conscience.
Is that how it happened last month?
Wait. So are you saying that Mr. Power dropped it, or that you guys
No,
voted?
I didn't say that at all.
Private?
I said, we had a chance to leave this meeting, go into executive session, confirm with legal counsel, and at that point in time, we decided to move forward with it. We thought it was best to move forward with the plan that we have in place now, which was already in place to begin. We had a county reopening plan. We kept that in place, and we're doing that now. We also have the pilot. We also have the pilot in place now, and in between there, we also have a blended learning plan that the board has already voted on. If we were to get a significant number of absentees from COVID or quarantines in a particular building, we could go into a remote setting similar to what Lebanon did and allow students to cycle back into the building off of quarantine. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think, again, the pilot that we're talking about is a way to keep kids in school and not have them be quarantined, and it's a parent option if they want to take that. We started that today. We got a couple of tests. A couple of students went down to test, and we're going to phase that in every 2 days here until we get that phased in across the district as an option for a parent to consider. The pilot is being overseen by the Ohio Department of Health and the Warren County Health District, and we're following their directions on that as far as the testing options that are there.
I just have one more question, I promise I'll stop, and I'll email board members if I feel like I have more questions. How often does it happen in our board? Because again, I'm new to this, right? I've got young kids just started getting involved with the district. How often does it happen that Mr. Power makes a proposal to the board, that the board tables that vote, and then that line item does not get resolved with a public vote? Is this a frequent occurrence on our board?
I've obviously been on a lot longer than me. I would not say that it's frequent. Has it happened from time to time? Yes, it has happened from time to time. We have tabled something and decided to move in a different direction. And I'll tell you, a lot of you were here last month. Obviously, we were here too. The one thing that the 5 of us have always committed to doing was listening, right? I may not answer, I may not respond, but I do listen, and I do read the 100 emails that I get in my inbox every morning. I try to read as many of them as I can. I felt like last month, whether you agreed or disagreed, we listened. We're listening tonight, and then we, figure out where we go from there. That's, I think, a big part of what we're supposed to do, as opposed to just do what this group may want or what the other group may want, is that we listen and we make a decision and we move forward. And so I think that's where we're at.
So all 5 of you then voted to not have masks?
Nobody, we had no vote.
So we're just asking for accountability, but you're saying you're not.
I was here last month, and thank you for listening. It truly does mean a lot. I would think that we all agree with that. I think sometimes, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken to answer questions too, because I feel like that's where I am at. I just have questions. I was not planning to come tonight. When my daughter got quarantined today, she is a healthy child at home. She did not participate in Little Miami last year. We decided as a family for her to be homeschooled because I did not want her to ride this roller coaster of you can come today, you can't come tomorrow. Seeing a child and saying, oh, you're a disease, I have to stay away from you. I didn't want her to have to ride that. She's in 7th grade this year. She loves volleyball. It is her passion. That is one of the largest reasons why we let her come back, so she could be involved in this community. She is now getting forced to miss the last 2 weeks of her season. No more. It's done. It's done. She's at home crying her eyes out because her life got changed. And some people may say it's just a volleyball game. It's her community. It's her lifeline. Mrs. Grace, she made a great point. That sweet dog that they have at Salem is going to bring comfort to kids that need comfort. I now have to stand and fight for my child, that she will not get depressed, that she will not spiral into a place emotionally. It is my job to fight for her, and I am standing here fighting for her. And I actually brought different parts of the law to talk to you about, but honestly, this is my heart. And I know it's just my story. And I know that we don't all agree. I understand that. I called the school nurse today with my questions. She was nice enough to listen. She gave me her answers, but they weren't really answers. She said, ma'am, you need to call the Board of Health. I said, please give me her number. I would like to call. I'm a school teacher at the homeschool co-op, so I called on my lunch break. The lady at the health department was on her lunch break. We couldn't talk. I had to go back and teach. We got to talk this afternoon. We had a lovely conversation. I gave her my questions. I wouldn't say she answered them. She gave me responses, but she did not give me answers. She ended our conversation by saying she's working 80 hours a week without getting extra compensation. And by talking to me, I'm keeping her from her job. That is what she told me today. I said, then give me the phone number of who I can speak to, that I can just genuinely ask my questions, because my conscience is, I'm not okay with this. I'm not going to say I'm okay with this when I'm not. When we know for a fact that the masks and the vaccine does not give us 100% protection. What in life gives us 100% protection? There is nothing. But we know that the vaccine and the masks, you can still get sick and you can still spread it. But now we're told at school, if you have those things, you don't have to quarantine. So I'll give you a personal example, and I wasn't going to do this. Abby sat next to the girl in her class who was there yesterday at school, went home, said she wasn't feeling well, and again got tested. So Abby is now told she can't come to school until October 8th. She sat to the right of this girl. So she's being quarantined. The girl had a mask on. My daughter doesn't wear a mask. The girl behind, the girl that's sick, doesn't wear a mask. And she's not quarantined. But this girl who's sick turns around and talks to her every single day, unmasked. My daughter has never spoken a word to her once, but is sent home. I don't understand that. I do not understand that. It doesn't make sense
If my daughter had a mask on and she went to the nurse today and she said, Abby, have you been wearing the mask? And she said yes, she could go back to class. She could continue her education in person and continue on the volleyball team. What if she had it around her wrist or a ponytail holder? She was wearing it. Would that suffice if the nurse said, were you wearing it? And she said yes, and it wasn't on her face? Would that be okay and she could go back to class? Because what her testimony is that what she sees day after day is kids wearing it around under their chin. That they're wearing it. I'm not going to allow my child to lie. She knows that we would never be okay with that. But my daughter is now paying the price by missing out what she loves. She's missing out on in-person education. Thankfully, she has great teachers. I've been so impressed with the teachers she's had this year. I'm so thankful for the teachers she's had. But she now has to sit in front of her computer at home and figure it out on her own and not get those teachers' support, not get that one-on in-class interaction. So I do have lots of questions, and I would love if I could speak to any one of you and possibly answer those questions. I know I've gone over my time, but that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
I can't imagine what it's like to navigate through this as an administration, as a board. I've served on the boards myself, as well as an HR manager. Administratively, my gosh, I'm sure you know, Mr. Powers. The manpower it takes to navigate something like this is monstrous. I think we're naive to think that we have some kind of control over a virus. We've never had control. We can manipulate it as much as we want by wearing masks, getting vaccinated, but we'll never be able to control it. Our bodies, in my mind, are designed to fight sickness. It's a well-oiled machine. It's a gift. My daughter was sick today, and I kept her home. She's been sick for 2 days. I'll keep her home again tomorrow. Out of respect, number one, of people that aren't sick. I won't be getting my daughter vaccinated or myself. I find it dangerous in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people that see it contrary. I have 2 children that are autistic. It was 2 weeks after they had their vaccinations that they developed autism. I confronted her pediatrician about this, asking for some answers because I don't understand it myself. Autism is inflammation of the brain. Inflammation is caused by metals in immunizations, but there's no data. He said to me, there's no data to prove any mother's, radar. I'm like, well, that's disappointing. He's, well, I'm on the autism board. I said, well, then you better get busy. Because I've talked to a lot of mothers. What is it? Every 4 to 10 kids will come down with autism. That's a lot. I said this to ask all of us in this room, including the board, to consider that we're not God and we're not in control of this. The other question we need to ask you, Mr. Governor, are our decisions based on money? What we give by grants through the state or by federal? If it is, please hold that answer. I just want you to consider what I'm saying. We say yes to one thing, we say no to something else. Your story that you just shared, it breaks my heart. My daughter's at home, am I ever going to go back to school again? The life that we have to give each other. I don't want to avoid someone because they're a leper. They need to be touched, they need to be loved. I don't know where everyone's faith is, but my faith is that humanity will win. Kindness and love will win. Vaccinations are going to win. Non-vaccinated will win. I respect those that are vaccinated, and I expect to be respected too. I think what we're putting our kids through and what we're putting all of you through administratively is unnecessary, but it's going to take a hell of a lot of people to stand with you as a board, as a school district, to say no. And if you want to get vaccinated, go ahead. It's not bulletproof, but I respect that. So I'm asking each and every one of you, please consider the pros and cons of our decisions financially. It comes with a price, one that we may not be able to pay for, and that's our future. It's our children. Our children mean everything. Your children mean everything to me. I'd lay my life down for them, and I hope you would do the same. Thank you for listening.
first to say, as several others have already said, I'm adamantly opposed to the pilot program. I think it's just a knockoff of the regular quarantine that we already have. I'm not going to subject my kids to all this different testing. I'm not going to sign them up for the vaccination. And as two different people, I believe, have said now, that's individual choice, right? It's their choice. If that's what I choose, that's cool. If that's what they choose to vaccinate their kid, that's cool also. I agree. Your story is absolutely heartbreaking. That is the piece that when I read your whole pilot program email at the end, it said, I want to thank Mike DeWine and the health department for this program. And in my brain, I thought Mike DeWine and the health department are the reason that we've had 2 years of utter chaos and nonsense in our school district and across Ohio. Here's my question. It sounds like you're well versed on this. And is it, what was the ER, what's the funding called? ESSER. She asked for it, but said not to answer. I want to know, is that funding dependent upon the school district doing specific things to get that funding, whether it be masking, vaccine, quarantine, etc.?
No, it's not.
So you're getting that money regardless of whether we mask, quarantine, or anything?
Correct. And I don't know.
As long as it's safe. As long as it's safe, because that's very open to interpretation by the federal government.
I keep track of it. I don't admit that with, spend on what have you, but I know the guidelines and so on, and this is more than the grant coordinator, but they answer better than me. I keep track of it, but I don't choose where it goes. But everything I've ever read on stuff, it doesn't matter if you have 0 vaccinated or 100% people vaccinated or what have you, you're still getting the funds.
But what about participating? Is it required to participate in the pilot program? Is it because we're initiating that kind of quarantine program? No? Okay.
Where's the mask mandate on the buses funded?
That's a federal fund, yeah. They don't give us money to mask people on buses, to be quite honest with you. They just give you money, they said, here, combat the virus is essentially what it says in, just simple terms. You can spend it on helping. The biggest thing we do, and I know this is working back this up, yes, what the money was used for, and we use it typically, well, not typically, always, but you can come up with that, but for education, to be quite honest, we've hired people to, because kids have got left behind, it's like you guys are saying, with throughout school and so on. We've hired additional staff with those dollars to educate. I know Mrs. Morgan, you can probably expand on that further, but it's not tied to anything else that I'm aware of.
That's the hope.
So if it's not tied to anything, I want to go back to, because I felt like this wasn't answered at the last meeting, and everything I've read over the last month, still I don't have clarity. Is the school district mandated by Governor DeWine or the health department to do either of these quarantine programs, or is it simply the school districts? So if it's not, so then I'm here to say then, if none of those are mandates, get rid of all this jazz and let the parents decide. My kid has a cough, you know what? I just did this with my son last week. He had symptoms that I was like, I don't know what it is. It could be COVID. It's likely not going to hurt other kids. But because I'm a smart parent and I choose wisely, I kept my kid home for about 3 days until he felt better. So if the health department is not mandating it, if the terrible governor of Ohio is not mandating it, and this is simply a school board decision, eliminate it. Let's get our lives back to normal.
Right.
I agree with so much of what everybody said. So, and again, I appreciate all of you. I really wasn't going to say anything, but I couldn't even imagine sitting up there and having to deal with this, like tug of war every day. Like, that's got to be horrible. You probably dream about this at night. I know I do, and I'm not sitting up there. So, I actually took my child out. He goes to private school, but my youngest goes to private school. So, but all of these points, like, what if your child is sitting next to someone and your child's not vaccinated, but you had COVID 3 weeks ago? You have a natural immunity to it now. According to my doctor, you have up to 6 months. So does that mean that, because we just had it right like 2 weeks before school started, thank God. But what happens in that case? What is that instance? And these rules, like you say, well, we're following Hamilton County or whatever county, but ultimately it's your decision. You guys get to decide this for us, and we pick you based on your decisions. So when you go up and you make these decisions, like the pilot program, we do, like she said, we want to know who voted for what. Like, we want to know. And I appreciate you trying this pilot program, like, you know, like trying something to keep our kids in school, but I don't think this is the answer. Like they said, let the parents choose. Like, if my kid, like, we just got it, well, we got it from somebody that had a fever, because he was an idiot and came to work. Like, hello, I should have taught you better than that, you know? But, I mean, that's what happened. One of my girlfriends got it from somebody that was vaccinated. My friend's daughter had a horrible immune response after being vaccinated. So I'm going based off of my life experiences, not what is on the television. So I just hope that you're thinking about that and about us, and on a personal level, where we are all coming from, and our heart and our kids, and we love our children, we want them in school. The depression is off the charts. I was a teenager, I remember how depressed I was, and none of this was happening, you know? Girls have, you know, they all have these crazy hormones going on in their heads, and they're super, like, up and down, and then you go to school, and your friends are masked, you can't even see their face. You already think, that person doesn't like me, that person doesn't like me. Well, then you look at this kid and they have a mask on, you can't tell, you can't read that from each other. You can't feel that emotion and that bond anymore. So, like I said, I really appreciate you guys talking to us, but we do want to know where everybody stands so we know what to do for the future of the board, because ultimately it's our decision. And we love our kids, and please just put them first.
Point being, I don't want to give names, my wife works for the biggest pharmaceutical company in the world, starts with a P. She's vaccinated. My son come down, he got sick. He was sick for 2 or 3 days. He had to have a COVID test, come back negative, come back to work, or come back to school. My wife, on the other hand, who's vaccinated, Pfizer does not mandate in their company vaccines, the people that created. Just think about that. My wife was sick for 5 or 6 days. She goes back to work today. She's vaccinated. I say that because you have no idea whether she had COVID or she didn't. You have no idea what any of this is. So when you do this vaccination thing, you don't have to prove it. It's like a little magic pill in your pocket. You know, my son, unvaxxed, I'm unvaxxed, I'll never get it. And saying that, because of that, we're shoved out to the side. We've got to prove our case. But being vaccinated, you don't have to prove your case. And I'll keep saying, if you're vaccinated, what do you got to worry about? Other than a vaccine, it's just a shot in the arm full of metal. But that's all I got. Thank you.